another thing we're seeing with Gen Z is like we are very focused in on kind of like, okay, well, what it's a very transactional relationship. Like what do we get out of this product? So for example, especially over these last few years, like honing in on the benefits of the product and like the job to be done by that product, like what is that product going to give me in my life, has we've seen that trend really accelerate in the last couple of years with the rise of like better for you products, right? So some of my favorite brands, they're these natural energy drinks because I drink way too much coffee, and that's probably not good. But these products, low calorie, low sugar, and they keep me up and running throughout the day. And that's why I lean more towards, buying these products over, some of their other competitors. Mark, curious to hear, like, what about the product, and what aspects of the product do you think resonate most with Gen Z, when you actually have a consumer packaged good and a physical product to market?
You mentioned one word there, transactional. And I think to me, Gen Z, it's all about being anti-transactional, meaning I always like to say prioritize purpose over profits. Meaning, if all you're about is transactions, you're just trying to sell more widgets, I don't think you're going to engage Gen Z whatsoever. Like, I think you're going to force Gen Z away from you. But if you have a higher purpose, whether that purpose is just helping make a better world, I think it all of a sudden your story becomes more compelling. You can engage more people into the brand, into the product, into the service. So I think the idea of going well beyond transactional, if it's purely transactional, if the business of the brand is all about we just need to sell more,
yeah, I
think that's such short-term thinking, especially with this generation. And then the other just area to it is I think the idea of personalization and customization. I think Gen Zers love brands that they can take their product or their service, either one. So we'll call Spotify a service, customize my playlist and things like that, where an Oreo cookie or a Converse sneaker is a product where I can actually go personalize, right? I can go personalize Oreos and create the way I want them, or I can create my Converse sneaker. I think Gen Z loves that idea. So even an old established brand like Converse, but if I can go in there and create my own color scheme and my own this and my own that, I'm creating it to my kind of lifestyle, my liking, all those kinds of things. So I think that kind of plays in a little bit. I just feel like the more we're seeing brands that offer that, they seem to be more popular with Gen Zers when you can, again, offer things like personalization, customization. And again, your brand stands for more than just, we want to sell you more, right? There's some sort of higher purpose that ties into your brand narrative.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned Spotify there, right? And more of like a software there as a service, but I think this bleeds into, more physical services as well, like local restaurants, right? Like one of my favorite restaurants here in Austin is one that I've been going to for a while, where now they have my order, which is very, very customized because I'm a little picky eater sometimes, and they have it down to the T there. And to your point about purpose, which is something that is a huge part of what we're doing here with our incentive-based donation model here at KNIT. It's something that we're seeing there with both, again, physical and digital companies as well, right? Brands that are selling goods that are raising money for things like COVID relief, for example, came in a much higher in terms of brand equity versus brands that weren't during the COVID pandemic, and some of our research there as well. Jay, curious to hear if what you're seeing on the kind of the social purpose piece of Gen Z. Have you leaned into that in any of your recent campaigns, or looked into it for any future ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most important piece of the puzzle, an organizational shift to meet that triple P, which is going to be people first, the people you employ, the vendors you employ, the communities that you operate in. That needs to come first. What has to come second is planet. And we no longer live in a world where having sustainability or some renewable play in your company is like a feature. It's like the requirement. And if that's not baked into the entire supply chain and every piece of the organization, that's going to be a long-term problem. And then finally comes profit. And it's important that it moves in that order, because we can't be prioritizing profit if we're not hitting those other two. And they're not mutually exclusive. It's not one of those things where, because we're having to invest into people and purpose and planet, that inherently that limits our profit because we're having to invest so much time, energy, and effort there. What we see with Gen Z, and that's a large part of our thesis, is that if you go after this generation and you're doing good for the the people, and you're doing good for the planet, and you're doing good to serve a purpose greater than driving a profit margin, naturally that profit will grow with. And so I think that is a strong organizational shift. There's the Jim Stengel report on purpose that shows that very definitively brands that have a clear purpose, illustrate that purpose, and actually follow through executing it, even in the financial market, they outperform their competition by a very strong margin. So I think overall that is a shift. It no longer our mission statement and what we say we actually do. We live in a world where it can't hide anymore. Us saying we do this, it will get exposed. And we're entering a world with blockchain technology where it'll be definitive whether or not something is actually derived from that source. And so with all of that said, I think organizations need to have that purpose baked into it and be doing much more to actually deliver on it. There's far too much put into the marketing side of saying we do this and very little action taken. And Gen Z I like to say a lot of Gen Z is from the state of Missouri because it's the show me state. Show me what you're actually doing. Don't just tell me about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Jake. I mean, we know our entire philosophy here, and I think something that was very core to me personally when we were starting this company is like companies that do good will do well, and let's help support that. Something like 90+% of Gen Z wants to support brands that are supporting good causes. My personal opinion is because we don't have a choice, right? Like these are issues, real issues, like with climate change that we're going to have to deal with in our generation is going to have to deal with in our lifetime, and we expect brands to support us and help us in making that difference. And that ties all the way back to how they're selling their products and it resonating with us. I know, Mark, you've done a lot of work on this purpose generation. What are some of your biggest takeaways and recommendations for brands?
Well, I'll add a fourth or fifth P to what Jake said. Like as he's going through that, my brain is thinking Patagonia, right? I'm just thinking of like brands when I talk to Gen Zers and they say, what are brands that kind of are doing what Jake said? And, that's a brand that came to mind right away as a purpose brand that's focused on, again, for lack of a better word, purpose over profit. The other thing too, that as you both were chatting in one of my recent surveys of Gen Zers from across America, 86%, which was a lot higher number than I thought, 86% say they're conducting some form of research before purchasing a brand or a service or a product to see if that company or that brand is truly purposeful. Are they doing good things? Are they contributing to a better society? That's a high number. That's not 8%. That's not 18%. That's 86%. Even if that number is somehow out of whack, even if that number is 70%, it's still, more than half, 3/4 of Gen Zers, it's that important to them that they first want to conduct the research, and they're not going to support a brand or a company, as Jake said, that's just out for the profit. And that's it, as opposed to people, planet, purpose. So I completely agree with that, and every Gen Zer I talk to kind of reinforces that, which is why I always talk about the purpose generation. I mean, that's Gen Z is the purpose generation.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely can back you up on that stat there, Mark. It is really, really important. I think 80% sounds just about right there.